Let's check out the differences between the Emek and its big brother, the M170R. I've been shooting an Emek for about a year now, and it really is an amazing marker. At the price point, I don't think it can be beaten. It's a gun that can be used by anyone, from someone playing their first day's paintball all the way up to the highest level mech tournaments. And so when Planet Eclipse brought out the M170R, I was excited to check it out. But I've heard guys saying that the Emek is basically the same gun as the M170R, just obviously the M170R is all aluminium construction and the Emek's a composite. So when my buddy lent me his M170R, I was amazed how different this gun feels. It's much more refined. And that material change allows Planet Eclipse to make improvements in every area of the gun. And so I'm going to go through all those changes today so that you can choose whether you want to pick up an Emek or an M170R. What do the markers share in common? Both of them have a similar arrangement to the gun. So bottom line ASAs with in-grip regulators that allows you to have the velocity adjustment here at the bottom of the marker. They both have transfer pipes, air transfer pipes inside the frame running up to the gamma cord driving the gun. Both have clamping feed necks and integrated front grips. Nice element is that the feed neck is offset on both guns. So this is a feature that Planet Eclipse has on their markers, which allows the paintballs to settle into the breech and helps to stop the ball bouncing back up and getting chopped as it's firing. So that is a great feature that both guns share. Let's look at the differences between the two guns then. First up, the ASA. On the Emek, it's all aluminium, but it doesn't have an on-off. On the M170R, you've got an upgraded on-off POPs ASA, which is a fantastic bit of kit. Push button here, and then slider bar that runs forwards. Really easy to switch on and off and control the airflow running into the gun. This is a great feature, so if you want to effectively degas the gun and then unscrew the bottle, you're unscrewing the tank when it's not under pressure, which is much better for the threads on the regulator valve. On the Emek, it's just straight screw in and unscrew the air system. The bolt assembly. On the M170R, you've got an aluminium back cap. On the Emek, it's a composite. So you just push up the back cap and then pull out. Really easy to take the M170R's bolt assembly out of the gun. On the Emek, you have to unscrew the back cap. Now, sometimes that can get put on too tight, and Planet Eclipse have put in these 3 points where you can actually get an Allen key in to start unscrewing the back cap. Mostly though, if you don't put the back cap in or the bolt assembly in too tight, it's easy to get in and out. It just takes a little bit longer, and then that shows us or reveals another slight difference between the two bolt assemblies. So between the two cores, the firing chamber is milled slightly differently on the M170R, and I think that they have the same volume, but I think the difference in milling will just be down to efficiencies in the milling process, I guess. But the guns seem to perform in a very similar way to each other. So just a few turns and that's back in tight, and you can see here that the M170R much quicker to get that bolt assembly in and out and service the bolt. Next feature, the clamping feed neck. It's an all composite feed neck on the Emek. Works really well. hasn't integrated, since Gen 2 I think, has integrated PALs here. So this means that it works with a PALs agitated loader, which also doesn't require batteries. And basically what's happening here is, if you can see, that small rod there gets pushed up by some of the air, probably back pressure I guess, from the firing of a paintball. And so that is enough to activate the agitation in the PALs loader. So it's a way of running one of the Emeks with without a loader that requires batteries. Now personally, if I was in a tournament, I'm going to be running a powered hopper. So if we look over at the M170R, this is Planet Eclipse's low rise feed neck, and you can see the profile of that is quite a lot smaller, and it's also not as high, so it saves you a bit of height and brings that hopper down. We just put these two side by side, you can see, and I guess I'd have said that difference is between 5 and 10 mil, maybe 8 mil difference in height. Next thing is, if you want to adjust the hopper, so this diameter here, you can adjust it using an Allen key on the Emek, which is straightforward enough to do, and that just allows you to get a fine refinement in this diameter here, so you can use different types of hoppers. Now on the M170R, you've got a thumb turn wheel here too, so without any tools you can get the same adjustment to tighten up this diameter and how tight that clamp goes. Another feature that I really like that's on Planet Eclipse guns is this brass insert piece here, which means that the clamp is not running on aluminium that's been anodized, and so that stops you getting anode wear when the clamp's running. It also makes it just a smoother operation, which is a feature that I really like. Next item up is the on-off. So on the Emek and the M170R, the on-off works in the same way. It's just a rod that's sliding from left to right for on-off. But on the Emek, it tends to be quite a bit stiffer because it's a more kind of robust platform. The refinement is there on the M170R. It's really nice. It's not so easy to push that you're going to accidentally switch the marker off, but again, it's just another nice level of refinement in the marker. The frame and the trigger assembly, there's also quite a few differences. So on the Emek, it's a composite frame. On the M170R, it's all aluminium, and the triggers on both of them are both aluminium triggers, but the Emek is a much longer stock trigger pull. So if you have a look there, you can see the distance that that trigger is moving is quite a lot there, maybe 9 mil. If you compare it to the M170R, it's much shorter, maybe 4 mil travel there. And the M170R comes with 3 trigger point adjustments. So the top one is spring tension, the middle one is the activation point for the 3-way, and the bottom one there is a stop screw. So you can really easily set this trigger up so that it's much shorter. And the spring on the Emek standard is quite a heavy spring. On the M170R, it's much lighter. There's also bearings on the top of this trigger and on the rod that runs to the 3-way, so it's a much smoother trigger pull. And the last thing I think I wanted to talk about is the front grip. So on the Emek, it's fully integrated. On the Ether 2, which shares the same sort of platform, it would house the batteries. On the Emek, there's no use other than the grip function here, and it's really comfortable. So if you underhand grip there, or your thumbs over the top of the barrel, it's a really comfortable grip. But on the M170R, again, on the electronic version of this gun, you'd house your batteries in here. But this sleeve here, which is rubberized, so it's much nicer feel in the hands, is a toolless removal. And so when you take that off, what it gives you access to is the eyes. Now the eye covers are aluminium here, they're composite on the Emek, and the Emek, to get to them you need to unscrew this screw here with an Allen key. On the M170R it's a simple case of sliding this across and then taking the cover off. So that's a toolless access and disassembly to get to the eye covers. Now obviously you don't need access to eyes, but what you do need access to are the ball detents, which are here. And so if you need to change those in a tournament, it's really easy to get to them and change them, and I think that's an excellent feature. Same on the other side of the gun, it's just ingenious design. And then just slide back on and you're good to go. Aside from the individual features that are different between the two guns, the material change, so back to that all aluminium construction, means that all elements of the M170R are more refined, smaller and lighter, a more compact overall gun. So if we just compare the two platforms, if we look kind of center point of where the barrel would be to the bottom of the ASA, it's about 15 centimeters on the M170R. On the Emek, if we look at the same measurement, it's about 16 centimeters. So overall, this section of the gun is a centimeter less on the M170R. Then if we measure up here, again, about center point of the barrel to the top of the feed neck, it's about 4 centimeters. And then on the Emek, it's about 4.8 centimeters. So maybe there's there's 8 mil between the two of them. Overall, the guns are almost 2 centimeters difference in height then. If we look at the length of the gun, on the Emek to the back cap, it's about 21.5 centimeters. On the M170R, it's 20, so it's about a centimeter and a half shorter. Overall, that's one of the things that makes this gun feel much more compact. Also, if you look here across the body, you're looking at about 2.5 centimeters there, versus on the Emek there's about 3.5. So there's almost a centimeter difference in the overall width of the two guns. And what this all does is means that the center point of the barrel is closer to the top of your grip, which means that when you're aiming this gun, it not only feels more compact, but it feels like a more natural shot. Time for the weigh-in then. Here I've got a set of scales that are just kicking around. They're not going to be super exact, but the weight is set to 0 and it's in kilograms. I'm going to do the Emek first with no barrel, just for comparison purposes. So that is a shade under 800 grams there. And then over to the M170R, again no barrel, and that's weighing in at just over 700, maybe 710, 720. So I would say the M170R has it. It's a tad lighter by 80 odd grams. I've just taken a moment to remove a few of the screws from the guns so that we can show you a disassembly really quick. On the Emek, there's 2 frame screws, one located here under the trigger guard, and the other at the back of the gun. They're easy enough to remove with an Allen key. And once you do that, the marker just splits into 2, so the upper body and the frame assembly. The grips are also super simple to remove. Toolless disassembly, so you just pull out this button and then unclip these 2 tabs, and the front and the back of the grips split into 2 and they peel away, and that gives you access into the 3-way assembly on the marker. The M170R, the frame screws are concealed to give a better appearance to the outside of the gun. The first one is hidden under this front sleeve, it's in here, and the other is under the bolt back cap. So you pull the bolt up, the back cap up, pull the bolt out, and the screw is located in here. So when you take those two out, the gun just splits into two, exactly the same as the Emek, and the grips come off with 4 screws to either side, and they just peel apart. So, and really there we've got most of the gunners apart now. The Emek, the 3-way assembly is here, and there is a rod that runs from the 3-way, which is just stopping here, in behind the trigger, and so you can see that the trigger is directly activating that rod, which will activate the 3-way, and it's running between the body and this brass rod running across the gun there. The M170R, that design is much more refined. So there's a block in here which is housing some bearings. The rod is running across in the same way between the back of the trigger and the 3-way here, but it's running through those bearings, which make it much smoother. The back of the firing point adjustment screw on the trigger there is brass tipped, so that gives a nicer surface, metal surface contact point, again helping to make the trigger and that firing activation much nicer on this gun. The trigger return spring is also positioned in here, so that's how you get the trigger return spring sensitivity adjustment in the front of the trigger there. So overall, those refinements in how the gun works inside make it a much nicer feeling shot when you're pulling the trigger on the M170R. Next, I'm going to put these two back together quickly, and then we'll try them over the chrono and see how they feel. First up, we're going to try the Emek over the chrono. It's just got an upgraded barrel on here, a power fed loader, pretty standard air system. Everything else is completely stock. I'll use exactly the same setup for the M170R. We'll compare the two over the chrono and see how they do. And we're just shooting a nice bit of GI paint in here as well. Let's check the velocity first on this then. That's doing 285. Just spiked over 303, 8.3 balls a second. Again, just spiked over 303, 9 balls a second. Next up then, the M170R. I've got the same loader, barrel and air system on here. Gun's completely stock. Let's just check it over the chrono and see what its velocity is like. That's fine, 292. So 8.9, 8.8 balls a second. .293, 9.1. .286, 9.9. They're warming up now. 280, 10 balls a second. So between the two, you can see the Emek and the M170R are delivering awesome performance. The M170R trigger really does have it. It's more adjustable and it can let you get up to those slightly better rates of fire. I haven't actually adjusted this one. I'd like it to be slightly stronger on the spring, but I think with a few tweaks I'd be able to get that kind of more consistently firing at that slightly higher rate of fire. Another thing to say is about the compactness of this gun. The M170r really does just feel more nimble, easier to get on target, and the trigger feels smoother. So I think those upgrades in the construction and design of the gun are really well worth it. In summary, we've got to say just how awesome the design of these markers is. All the features that they share in common, with the airlines running through the gun, the regulator in the grip, the gamma core driving the gun, give that performance level to players of any price point. So even people playing their first day's paintball can get an awesome experience playing paintball, which is brilliant for growing the sport. And a gun like this Emek, if this is your price point, don't be afraid to pick this up and take it home with you. I can get 9 balls a second out of a stock one of these, and there's lots and lots of aftermarket upgrades available, tons of different triggers with adjustment on them. Pops ASA you can pick up for one of these. You can upgrade this gun in all sorts of ways over time. You can even customize the look and feel of this marker, so make it your own with 3D printed bodies, 3D printed eye covers and back caps, all sorts of different colors, cast bodies in different colors. You can hydro dip them, and you can even get the upgraded feed necks as long as you match them to the right body. So this gun is something that is way above, in terms of its performance, way above its price point. The M170r on the other hand is just such a much more refined marker. It's got that higher quality kind of aluminium construction, which allows it to be tighter and more compact, and all those relatively small dimensional differences all add up to really making this whole gun, particularly when you consider a hopper on top of here, the whole gun presents a much tighter profile for tournament players. That's a particular bonus, and it just feels much kind of a more natural shot, lighter, a bit more nimble in the hand and to get on target. So I can completely think this is an awesome marker, slightly higher price point, but well worth the money. And if you're playing in tournaments, this is the sort of thing certainly that you're going to want to consider and pick up. Overall then, Planet Eclipse is doing an amazing job at presenting markers that deliver for any budget, and you shouldn't be afraid of picking either one of these two up, whichever is at your price point, and make sure you go out and have fun playing paintball. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the team on Facebook and Instagram.